Hello there, Mad Mike here, and welcome back to the channel. And today we have some information that's coming out of Lucasfilm, which very rarely is news coming out of Lucasfilm good, and this is really no exception to that rule. And that is that there is a new series being developed for Disney Plus out of Lucasfilm, and it is going to be headed by Leslye Headland. Now, I'm going to go through some things in this, and I'm going to kind of try and break down what I can here and give an objective opinion about this because right now this is being a lot of sites and a lot of YouTubers and a lot of other people are basically just condemning this as dead in the water. Um, I would agree with the sentiment, but I don't necessarily agree with the reasoning, and I'm just going to kind of explain the reasoning so that kind of you can understand the way I seem to understand it. Now, to do this, we're going to have to go back in Headland's history a little bit, all the way back to about 2005. Or all the way back to the early 2000s, I should say, before she went to Broadway. Because originally, Headland was, when she first went into the scene of actually making products and making media, she went into musicals, which she had a couple of them. One of the musicals, which I'm going to be talking about, is called Assistants. Assistants, not assistants. Like not like you need assistants, like an assistant, a personal assistant. Just multiple of them. And so she developed that as well as a few other plays. A couple of them actually wound up getting adapted into movies that she also did. But early on, before she did her plays, she was employed at Miramax and the Weinstein Company more specifically, and she was a personal assistant to Harvey Weinstein. Now we all know about Harry Weinstein. I'm not going to go into that, but the thing is that this is a bad PR move for Disney because Harvey Weinstein just got sentenced not too long ago. I think it was a couple months ago when he finally got sentenced to his prison term, and he's still due to be tried in New York. That was only his trial in California. So the New York trial is still going to be going on. So this is still current events. And now the other thing is, Disney does not know if she's going to be called to the stand. If anything's going to happen, I don't know if she has already. I don't know if she had any kind of a witness thing, or she had to give a testimony in the L.A. trial. But she might have to give one in the New York trial if she didn't. So there's going to be that pressure on Disney because she's going to have to go and do that for obvious legal obligations. If any of that information gets out, that she was compliant with Harvey Weinstein's, his methods of, degrading and ultimately assaulting women, then that's going to be on them as well. Now, I don't know if this woman was compliant with what he was doing. I think that she knew what he was doing because I'm going to explain later on where some of that kind of bleeds over very obviously into other things. Um, but at the same time, I think that that's going to cause a lot of negative PR. And supposedly, right now, Bob Iger and Bob Chapek are both very pissed that she was hired, and they were not consulted about it. And apparently, there are some meetings going on at Disney, or they're trying to organize some large meetings right now, digital meetings, to discuss this. So here's the thing. So she is involved in that company. She is Harvey Weinstein's personal assistant for 1 year out of the 6 years that she worked there. So I wouldn't say that necessarily she knows the man insanely well, but she probably knows him well enough. So then she goes and makes this Broadway play called Assistants. Now, Assistants has a company in it called the, I believe it's the Weisenberg or the Weisenberger Company. Um, and obviously that is not far off uh, the Weisinger Company. I stand correct. Weisinger. Sorry, I wanted to pull it up in front of me just to make sure that I got it correctly. So it's the Weisinger Company in the play, which I believe is that adapted into a television show. So she did that play, which very obviously is parodying the Weinstein Company, because Weisinger and Weinstein sound very similar. And during when you go into some of the scenes where they actually go into the office, the moniker for the company is a massive W, which is the same thing for the Weinstein Company, or at least it was at the time. So you had a lot of parallels. Apparently, the boss of the company, according to some of the people that had watched the play and I think eventually the television show, they agreed that the boss was a lot like Harvey Weinstein for the people that knew him and watched the actual production. So that means that she knew him well enough to make a parody of him and make him look like an idiot. Again, according to the descriptions, I haven't actually seen the show or the Broadway play. I shouldn't say Broadway, but or the play. But from every account, he's a short-tempered asshole, which a lot of people said pretty much fit Harvey Weinstein. So it made sense. Now, here's the thing. If you're Harvey Weinstein's personal assistant for the course of that year, now I don't know what he was up to in terms of, what he was doing necessarily over the course of that year, but you got to figure people were going to know about it, and a lot of his employees or some of his employees were the ones that were coming out and claiming this stuff early on. So the people in that office probably knew what was happening. And I'm not going to say they didn't. And I'm not just lumping Leslye Headland into this bunch. A lot of those people didn't say anything for a large amount of time. But the thing is that Leslye Headland covered up by saying that everything that was in the play or in the media that she created was not was all her. It had nothing to do with real life, even though you were obviously drawing clear parallels from your previous workplace. So I think that kind of does not shine a very good light on her in certain ways, um, to the sense that at that point, afterwards, I'm very surprised she didn't come out and say that she it was and he was a horrible person and stuff like that. I'm sure she's denounced him already because most of Hollywood has. But that's a little suspect and weird to me in that involvement, and I think that's a bad PR move by Disney. Now the second bad PR move is that apparently she is also loosely associated with Ryan Johnson. I'm not going to say not romantically. She's a lesbian, but he's not. Apparently, she wrote something that he did way back, and he said, "Oh, we're friends or whatever" on Twitter. You don't want Ryan Johnson endorsing you if you're doing a Star Wars product, especially not these days. Regardless of if you like The Last Jedi or not, it is not it is a very polarizing thing when he gives you when he goes and gives you something like that. Now, the other thing that I found bad was that there is a lot of press stuff where she is, spouting the same usual feminist insanity. Again, very similar to Brie Larson. So I would kind of put those two on, I guess, would be the same level, even though obviously Headland has not, you know, pressed her views into the project, at least not as of yet. However, the base description of the Star Wars project she is working on is it's basically kind of what you would expect if it was somebody like her directing it or writing it. She's the showrunner technically, so I don't know if she's actually. I would assume she's also the lead writer because she's technically, I think, basely as a writer, and maybe she'll direct a few episodes if it actually goes through. But she because she's kind of had a history with this. The show is female centric. Again, I think that is it's not a bad thing. I don't want to say it's a bad thing, but the way that Disney tends to write their female characters is not good. So it doesn't give me confidence when I hear that, not because I have a bias against female-led television shows, but because I have a bias against Disney writers, because most of the time they suck, at least from the Star Wars standpoint. So there's that, and then on top of that is the fact that she's never worked on something that is going very hardcore fantasy and sci-fi. Now, she has done a show on Netflix called Russian Doll, which I guess is actually very popular on there. I haven't seen it as of yet. But it's got an interesting premise. It's got kind of a catchy premise where this girl goes to a party where she dies, but she's stuck in kind of like a time loop. So it's basically kind of like Edge of Tomorrow or Groundhog Day, a plot line like that, where she goes to or actually Happy Death Day is probably the almost exactly the same plot line, which kind of again makes me feel like that's a bit unoriginal, but that's what the show is about, and that's kind of really the closest I've seen that she kind of gets to the point where she's willing to go into a fantasy realm, because obviously that's not something that could actually happen. So that's as far as she's willing to go. Most of her stuff takes place in what we would consider to be reality. So it's odd in the sense that you would pick somebody like that to do something that is so ingrained in fantasy and science fiction like Star Wars. Again, it's one of those things. If you're going to have somebody come in and do one of those films, they should probably be at least somewhat versed in science fiction in terms of some of the projects they've done in the past. I'm not saying it has to be Star Wars related, but I am saying that it probably has to be something. If they got J.J. Abrams after he did Star Trek. Again, I wouldn't say it was a great choice in general because we've already seen the products, but it made sense because he had done science fiction things and he had done big set pieces. It makes sense to get a director like that. It makes sense to hire a guy like Colin Trevorrow who did Jurassic World. It makes sense to hire guys like Jon Favreau who've done big films like Iron Man. So it makes sense to hire those type of people to do this because you need somebody with experience to handle this kind of a budget. Now, I'm not sure what kind of a budget this television series is going to have. From what it's described, it says it is female-centric and martial art and a base of martial arts. Which means you're probably going to see a lot of sword play and stuff like that, or hand-to-hand fighting and things like that. I imagine it would be sword play. I assume that's what they'd categorize the martial arts as, is the sword play in the Star Wars universe. With lightsabers and the fighting styles and stuff. Which, by the way, if you actually went into that stuff in depth in a show, in a live action show, that would be kind of interesting if that actually did happen. But I doubt that on this production unless Dave Filoni has a hand in it somehow. But so I think that's bad too. So there's really not a lot of positives to this type of a hire. And again, that's nothing against Headland as a professional, as a director or a writer or a showrunner, because she's proven that she can run successful shows. Again, even though it's not really my thing, she's proven that she can make something that people do want to watch. So she's not a failure in that she's not a failure at her job or anything like that, and she does qualify for the role, being that she has directed in the past and she has written in the past. Again, it's just never been anything like this. And to make such a big jump from something that you've been doing for pretty much the entirety of your professional career into something else that's an entirely different genre that you have to handle in a very different sense from a story perspective, maybe not from a character perspective because that's kind of universal, but from a story perspective, you have to handle it differently. So I would say that's a bad idea. I don't think that she's a good choice to helm an entire show by herself. Maybe stick her in there as a writing room because she's been in writing rooms before. That would make sense. But make sure you pepper in people with different points of view, for Christ's sake. Don't just make it an echo chamber. But I think that would be perfect, or an assistant director, or something like that. Even if she is just directing it, if she's directing a script that someone else has written, that would probably be fine too. But the fact that she's an entire showrunner and she gets to shape every creative aspect of this show is concerning. And again, this is because Disney right now is hemorrhaging money because of the close downs of the parks. So it all makes sense that they really don't want bad PR right now. Not that you ever want bad PR necessarily, but they don't want bad PR right now from this particular choice with this woman, with Leslye Headland, and that they don't want that publicity, which is why they are so pissed that Lucasfilm went and hired her in the middle of all this. And now they have announcements and stuff out there, and they have things that they might have to take back. So you have a lot of issues there. The fact that they're still letting Lucasfilm have any kind of autonomy is actually shocking to me. But Iger is supposedly pissed. Chapek is supposedly pissed. And they're trying to scramble right now to figure out what the hell to do. Again, this is a rumor that is happening behind the scenes. As of right now, it's not a rumor that she is going to be heading a Star Wars show. That is not rumor. That was announced. It is rumor that Disney is losing their fucking minds right now, trying to run damage control for this at the same time trying to balance out all the other money issues they've been having. So it's just it seems like it's a bad choice. It seems like this would have been something maybe you would maybe you announce it like 3-4 months down the road, let it sink in then instead of doing it now. Or maybe, their idea was they could say it now and it would slip under the radar because of the coronavirus stuff. But a lot of people did start picking this up. A lot of major movie and superhero and science fiction film sites started picking this up, as well as other YouTubers. So it didn't go under the rug like maybe they hoped it would, and I feel like maybe that's the reason why they did this announcement now, was because they wanted it to kind of blow over a little bit. Maybe you'll get a little spike, and then after that it'll kind of bleed off really quickly, and nobody will remember anything about it until the show's already most of the way through production and we start seeing materials from it. But I'm going to hold back my judgment on this thing until I actually see something. If we see something at all, again, if these rumors are true, there might be some shakeups going on in regards to this project. But as of right now, I'm not going to condemn it, even though I just don't have much faith in it. Let's put it that way. I don't have very much faith that the project is going to get off the ground and be successful like a Mandalorian, but at the same time, I can't condemn it because I haven't seen anything from it yet. So but I want to know what you think. Are you interested in this new Star Wars series? Are you kind of shocked at the hiring of Leslye Headland? Or well, I shouldn't say shocked, but are you surprised by it? Do you think that it was a good hire or a bad hire? Would you like to see things from her, or have you seen things from her that you do like? Put that in the comments below. Make sure to hit the bell of notifications, hit the like button, subscribe, and remember, I live my life free of compromise. Do you?